there's a danger of addicts who've cleaned up, of really romanticizing. Obviously, they have an issue with it. If they've quit, they know that they can't do it anymore and function to any, relative degree of happiness. But at any sort of recovery meeting, there will always be a couple people who want to top everyone else with their, I was the worst addict in the room. Like, my friend Jerry Stahl calls it one-downsmanship. There's always like one guy who's like, I was shooting heroin into my eyeball, you people don't know what it's like. When everyone's bottom is their own bottom, and it's generally terrible, and, whatever it happened to be, So I wanted to avoid romanticizing it as, something that was, celebrated in a way that it didn't look like it was overtly celebrating it. And I didn't want to turn it into, oh, you get clean and it's happily ever after. I mean, the life of an addict is, it's an extreme version of everyone's life to a certain extent, is that it's always on the precipice of something going terribly wrong. You're one decision away from, your life changing radically. So I didn't want it to seem like, this was over in someone's life. And also I didn't want to say, don't do drugs, it's terrible for you. Because it's everyone's personal journey, and I didn't want to celebrate them or demonize them. It's deeply personal with everyone, if that makes sense. He talks about if something's really dissonant, no matter how dissonant and disturbing it is to the human ear, if it resolves to something melodic, people tend to think of it as musical and melodic, whereas if something's quite musical and melodic and it ends in dissonance, it ends in a disturbing fashion that leaves the audience aching in some way and unresolved themselves, And there's, Hemingway had this thing where he said, the job of fiction isn't to convince the reader that something happened, but to make them feel as if it happened to them. And to do that narrative lack of resolve while still finishing the story, but leaving it on a note of sort of emotional dissonance, is one that I hope is mirrored in the audience, feeling that same sort of uncertainty and ache of not having it fully resolved. And it came from my first girlfriend was murdered when I was very young. Very kid girlfriend thing, not like 18 or anything, like 11 years old, you hold hands, you write notes. And it was an unsolved murder. And the notion of an unsolved murder when I was that young really just shaped my vision of whether or not things resolve. It's still unsolved, and it still bothers me that it never gets reduced to being tied up. Oh, it's by far the most autobiographical piece I've done. I'm almost finished with a memoir right now. I'm hoping to finish by the end of the summer, which obviously, that's got nothing to do with me. It's a memoir, but it's about a guy I knew.